news presentation.
Good evening and a warm welcome to Interface. My name is Thembi Samachele. As you know, July is Savings Month, and every year we lament how South Africans just do not save. In fact, the latest stats show that we rank lowest among 13 African countries when it comes to saving. So why are we so bad at this? And what exactly do we spend our money on? That's the question we're asking tonight. And for one, we seem to have a growing penchant for expensive funerals in South Africa. Bigger, flashier seems to be the order of the day. And so the Financial Services Board and the South African Council of Churches have teamed up, and they've just rolled out a program that takes the message of financial literacy to the pulpit. First up on their agenda is tackling these expensive funerals. And we'll talk to them in just a moment. But first, let's take a quick look at this insert compiled by Ginosi Queen.
46-year-old Jenny Matlow has been a member of the Ikageng Social Club for the past 10 years. Ikageng signifies the solidarity among members who have become like a big family. The 30-member club meets every month to put together savings and chat over a cup of tea. It's also the time when they reflect on challenges and congratulate each other on personal successes. Barely educated herself, Jeannie never dreamt she would one day afford to put any of her 5 children through school, let alone university. Her daughter recently completed a university diploma, a first in her family, and thanks to the support of her club.
University of Johannesburg. 12,000 ka ngwaga.
My child went to UJ. They needed 12,000 per year. I don't earn much where I work, so I asked for help from the ladies in my stokvel. They gave me 12,000 rand, and I managed to avoid paying interest. I paid for tuition, books, transport, and her food.
Her daughter is proud of her achievements. I am proud of her because not many parents are in a position to pay university fees. I am also proud of the women in her club because they help one another. There are many children who've passed matric, but they couldn't go further like me. Call them stokvels, mogodisano, society or syndicates. These methods of saving have been popularized over the years by especially low-income earners who mostly did not trust the banks with their hard-earned money. The stokvels economy is said to be worth well over 44 billion rand. Mavis Jansen has been a financial advisor for over 20 years. She has come to understand stokvels as more than just savings clubs.
The important thing here, Kenosi, is not just the money. It's the fellowship, the social aspect thereof. It's about the people thing. If there's a death, it is the ladies from the society who would come together. They would basically arrange for the funeral. They would make sure that the catering is done. And for me, no bank, no financial institution could ever compete with that.
Disappointingly, high-income earners are most notorious for inconsistent saving. Willem Loos is head of umbrella funds at Liberty Corporate. He believes government could do better to encourage saving by way of incentives.
We have a situation where there are large families to support, so the working individual in the home has to support direct and extended family, and that makes it hard to put anything away. So in terms of possible ways in which perhaps potentially government and the like can help is through what the government is proposing in terms of a retirement reform system, where amongst others, we all, in terms of working population, belong to a retirement system, but particularly lower income workers potentially get the opportunity to have a contribution subsidy.
The stokvel story provides a ray of hope for many who earn barely enough to meet their daily needs. And for low-income earners, it can become a safety net for the future. Kinosi Kwene, Interface, Johannesburg.
Well, let's introduce our guest this evening. Advocate Dubachidi is the CEO of the Financial Services Board, and Reverend Gift Nwerane is with the South African Council of Churches. Remember that we do take your comments on our SMS line 33726, or you can drop us a line on Facebook on our page, which is Interface on SABC3. And we're asking the question, why is it that we are so involved and so serious about our funerals that we spend as much as we do? And is it really as big a problem as what we make it out to be? Or are South Africans doing what they can? That's the question we're asking you tonight. And you can drop us your thoughts on those avenues that we've highlighted for you. Welcome to both of you, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Tenbi.
Let's start with you, Mr. Chidi. Is it really as big a problem as what we make it out to be, this whole idea that South Africans are not saving? When you take a look at that clip and you see a woman who says she's put her children through school and varsity using the stokvels.
Thank you for the question, Tembisa. Let me put the background to why we are here with Reverend Moerane. The FSB and South African Council of Churches formed a partnership. And you may ask yourself why these two diverse institutions, one from the money side and one from the spiritual and morality side, form partnership. We did so because both of us, even though we come from different parts of life, we have one common denominator, and that is dealing with the human being. And the issue of dealing with human beings in total, one of the problems that we have seen, it's the management of assets, the management of money. And August is the month of savings.
July. And I'd like us to get into this partnership specifically, but I just want to highlight, having seen what we saw in that clip, is it really as big a problem as what we make it out to be? Or are South Africans generally doing what they can to save?
Well, if you look at that clip, the people who are meeting there, they're meeting for a specific purpose of saving for the education of their children. But we are saying, to make that story even more successful, we've got to ask our people to spend even less on things that are important but are not as crucial as what we've seen on the clip. And we have identified as funerals as one of those aspects where we can really, important as they are, we can save some money by spending it wisely instead of opting for opulence.
Reverend Miranda, let's bring you in here. Is it a poverty thing? Is that why South Africans are saving less than on average when compared with the average African country? I mean, in our intro there, we're talking about how of 13 countries in Africa, we rank the lowest. Is that a poverty thing?
I don't think here is the issue of being poor. It's the issue of being ill-informed on where to put your money. Because when you look at the amount of people are saving through these schemes, you can name big insurance companies. These big monopolies, they put the money of the poor in the stock exchange. Money goes between them. The family, the bereaved family, or the poor woman somewhere in Soshanguve only get even a fraction of the amount she's supposed to get, because it's only meant for a coffin when death strikes. But during the course of the cycle of investment, that poor woman is not aware that my money is playing a yo-yo game in the stock exchange and somebody is making money out of this. There are billions of rands that insurance companies are making out of the exploitative manner they take money of the poor without explaining to them. The underwriters, they take poor people's money and invest it into these big companies. And that's where money is made. So we can say South Africans got the potential to save. Okay. So we think this partnership can assist us to say to people, take your money to where it belongs and where it can make more profits for you.
All right.
We have been joined already by the Association of Burial Societies. They say they want to take this education to their members.
Reverend Moran, I'd like to bring the FSB in on that point that you have brought up, which is how to get the industry, the financial services industry, to be more responsible when it comes to these funeral costs. But we'll have to do that right after this break. Welcome back. You're watching Interface, and tonight we're asking the question, why do we spend so much on our funerals? Why do we have to have all of the expensive clothes and the coffins and everything that we spend on our funerals? Can we do with much less? That's the question we're asking you, and we do welcome your SMSs as well as your Facebook comments. Let's continue with this discussion. Mr. Chidi, why is the FSB and the South African Council of Churches, why are you lecturing people on how to honor their dead?
Tembisa, it's not a question of telling people or prescribing to people as to how they want to bury their dead. It's a whole question of making sure that poor people are not being made to feel less of human beings than other human beings. Because you will remember that every time you go to a funeral, there's some kind of subtle competition that is taking place. People are always saying, I went to that funeral, that is what has happened. And when they are faced with the same situation, they want to make sure that they compete with what they saw previously. And that over time has become the norm in the society. And we are saying, let's go back and look at the fundamentals. And the fundamentals are, let's bury our dead with dignity, but at the same time, let's avoid excessive expenditure, because the monies that we spend excessively on funeral, it's monies that we could save for the benefit of the education of our children.
But if you look, Reverend Morane, at what we are spending on, is it not more of a social thing, like the lady in the insert was saying, that it's really about the numbers, it's about the people that are coming to support you. And when they're there, you've got to feed them, and you have to have a tent, you've got to transport them. So these are just basic necessities of any funeral, one would argue.
No, I won't necessarily agree with that notion, because we know originally when there is bereavement, we people always were used to go to the family, to assist the family to bury, contributing a little bit of money. We're even paying for transport to the cemetery. Until when this new arrangement of burial societies emerged in the communities to say, we'll give you money to cover the entire funeral cost. And that actually eroded that culture of providing support to the bereaved family.
But what's wrong with the burial societies per se? Because isn't that a way of making sure that people are not getting to the end of their lives and they're like paupers, they have no way of being buried?
Let me react to that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with burial societies. It is how the proceeds that people get from the burial societies, how they use the proceeds. You know, if you are a member of burial society, usually you get 10,000, 15,000, maximum of 18,000 rand, even with a funeral policy. Now, a normal, dignified, simple funeral shouldn't take you 18,000 rand. If you get a nice, dignified coffin, buy sandwiches or buy a loaf of bread, cup of tea, serve the people, it's done. You will realize you will have spent at least about 10,000 rand. You're left with 8,000 rand. Or you may have spent 8,000, you're left with 10,000 rand. That balance, you're going to put aside, you save it for the benefit of the running of the family after the funeral, and of course the education of children.
But is that really realistic though? Because if you look at particularly African funerals, where you've got to slaughter something. You can't be serving sandwiches and tea. You've got to slaughter something in honor of the dead, or for the people to feel like they've really participated in this function of yours. And then with the slaughtered sheep or the slaughtered cow, you've got to have something that goes with that. So the sandwiches and tea idea, isn't it a little bit Eurocentric?
Tembisa, the original idea of going to a funeral or visiting the bereaved family is to go there and support them during their time of pain. It is not for you to go there and be looked after and be provided with lunch at breakfast time. It is for you to go there, support them as much as they want, spiritually, emotionally, and once you've done that, leave them in peace. Don't expect all these lunches with all sorts of menu.
Is that practical, though, Reverend Mweran?
I think the program, the partnership with FSB, is meant to achieve the following point, that we will need to affirm people to realize that our earthly life is dignified enough that you don't have to wait for me to die in order to show that you love me. And that's where I think the problem is at the moment. So we can agree to a certain level that you can spend so much money, maybe to slaughter, if maybe it is necessary, because not all families today are slaughtering. But the problem is the pressure that society is putting on families. Unless we change that mindset from the people that when you attend a funeral, you expect to be fed.
But I think that's the point I'm coming to. Is it pressure or is it need? In this sense, you have some relatives that come from very far.
Yeah.
They come and they support this family. They stay for a couple of days, some of them. Surely you can't be saying, let's cut costs and how we're going to feed these people that have come to cry with us here.
In families, of course, there are processes that when we come around one of us who have suffered a loss, we don't just come folding our arms.
Okay.
We come there, we put a little bit on the table. And that is Ubuntu that we have displayed all the years. But the problem mainly you find that is on the day of the funeral itself. Even that period of bereavement, even today, we want to be fancy, to bake, to do all this kind of thing, which is not important. You find that when they say, Abu Mama Bamtandazo will come on Thursday, then the family go to expenses of baking and so on. It's not necessary. Instead, they must bring those cakes to support the family. And that's what actually we want to take out, to educate our churches, to say, you don't have to expect that. Instead, you must actually prepare, bake for that family, go and contribute.
So let's go back to the basics of how things were meant to be.
So go there to support, not to be supported.
Interesting concept. And I wonder if you agree. Do drop us your thoughts on 33726. That's on SMS, and also Interface on SABC3. That's on our Facebook page. We'll continue with this discussion right after this break. And you're watching Interface here on SABC3. My guest tonight are Advocate Dube Chidi, who is the Executive Officer of the Financial Services Board, and also Reverend Gift Mweran, who is with the South African Council of Churches. And we are talking about funerals and how come we spend so much on them, and whether it is just a way of honoring our beloved that have passed on, or it is a way of wasting money. That's what we were asking you on SMS and also on the Facebook page. Let's just take a couple of your comments. Tsepo Mulifi says, I fail to understand the scuffle about saving. It has been said many a times that we are underpaid and unemployed. Mkolisi Masilela says, the reason we don't save is that we want all now, forgetting that those who have what we want, except, of course, tenderpreneurs, planned and worked for years to accumulate what they have. And on the SMS line, we have Sig in Randburg saying, people who barely survive cannot be expected to save. And we also have an anonymous one saying, the cost of living is so astronomical currently, I cannot fathom how most people can afford to eat, never mind save. So there's a very serious sentiment that what you're asking people to do, which is to save, you're asking for too much because we have very little to begin with. Reverend?
Let me start here by saying South Africans are saving, but they are saving in a way that they are not aware that they are saving. They put money in wrong pockets. You look at how the banks today have manipulated the situation of the poor by selling all these products. Is where people put money in. So it's only for us to educate people to say, this is the wrong way of saving. You cannot save for funeral, save for life. And then that's where we are lobbying even our financial institutions to say, educate people that when you buy this product, you can spend so much. Their experts, financial experts, should take these poor people through to say, if the policy costs or maybe pays 20 or 25,000 or 50,000, you don't have to put that 50,000 under the ground by buying an expensive casket. You can take 15,000, prepare the burial, or 10,000, then the rest save it for those who are remaining behind. That's a mistake that people are doing, that they spend every cent
on the actual funeral
You
itself.
understand? So here we don't have to glorify the burial. We need to respect the dead, but not the funeral service itself.
All right. Directly, when we talk about what can be done with the remaining money, is it a matter of a lack of education on the part of South Africans in terms of where they can invest the money, or is it just a matter of consumerism that's driving us?
It's a combination of both, but mainly the question of education. This is why this partnership, we are going to embark on a process of education. Because, as Reverend said, people are saving. Putting money in stokvels is saving. Putting money in burial societies, it's saving. It is how you use that money in the most profitable and most wise way.
And what
that's the
is
issue.
the most profitable way? Because as far as we know as South Africans, if you're putting it in a stokvel, you're doing really well. If you're putting it in a bank account, you're doing excellently.
You say the wise way of using money is whatever you put in a burial society, for example, it does not mean finally when you get that money back because you've got bereavement in the family, there is no compulsion on you to spend that money, all of it, on funeral. Use it wisely, yes, bury the dead in a dignified manner, but save something from that lump sum. Put it aside for the benefit of life, running of the family, education, and anything that is around the family.
And in terms of the corporate savings, the people that are part of these clubs and these societies, if, for example, you have a group of people, 10 people that are saving towards the funeral costs and they get these lump sums, what would you suggest that they do to not just to save for themselves, but to take this money on a larger scale and to do something more positive with it, more corporately?
We suggest that through this program, we vigorously educate people on investing in life-sustaining initiatives where you can actually invest on endowment policy for education for children, the orphans. Then you know that at least children will be able to go to school. So instead of saying, it's 15,000, with 5,000 I'm buying this, and then you spend the whole money. Okay. You go to insurance companies, they say, the first thing they will ask you, do you have a policy? Then you say, I've got a policy, how much? 35,000. Then they give you a quotation of 35,000 rand.
So this is the message that will be preached from the pulpit?
Yes, from the pulpit.
As part of this?
Yes, yeah. Well, you earlier asked how the industry would come in here, how we would include the industry. Clearly, this is a policy issue that we must look at with the possibility of making sure that all funeral policies in the future are hybrid policies. Hybrid in the sense that it should be a policy that takes care of both the dignified funeral and the education of children.
Okay. I like that one, and we will follow up with you to see just how far you are in trying to get the industry to participate in this. But thank you so much to both of you for coming through to talk to us on this. Now, you can continue this conversation on Facebook. Remember that our page is Interface on SABC3, and keep those SMSs coming, and also just review your feelings around funerals and see how much you've been spending in your family towards the burial costs. And if you can, do cut down and do try and save for future generations. From us here at Interface, good night.